is the best kind of love.
They kind of have this whirlwind romance, right? They fall fast.
And when it becomes more than just undeniable attraction.
His family had took her in. She felt like Joshua Nick's family was her family.
You become desperate to hang on to your man no matter the cost.
She's thinking that we're just gonna beat him up, teach him a lesson, but things take a turn.
In the chaos of that moment, it had gone further than I imagined.
Desperation can lead you down a dangerous road.
So she then had a decision to make about how much further she wanted to go.
And cost you everything that matters most.
She lost the things that were most important to her, the people who were most important to her, everything.
April 1st, 2017, Long Island, New York. The sun has yet to dawn on one of New York's most famous suburbs, one residents affectionately call Strong Island.
Long Island is broken up into primarily two counties. We have Nassau County and Suffolk County. One of the primary reasons is because the homes out here tend to be a bit less expensive. You know, even if you're looking for someplace that maybe has better school districts, where you can really have that suburban living.
While Suffolk County offers upscale suburban living, it has its share of underserved communities too, like the small hamlet of Wyandanch.
Wyandanch, what you would consider an underprivileged neighborhood within the suburbs.
The things that you see in Wyandanch, you won't really find in any other areas of either Suffolk or Nassau County, right? The abandoned houses, things of that nature.
It's a low-income neighborhood. It's mostly African Americans, some Hispanics, but it's dead set in the middle of Suffolk County, Long Island.
Suffolk County police officers are on routine patrol when they spot a frantic man trying to get their attention.
They flagged down the police officers, and they said that he had found a body. Police officers originally, I don't know if they believed them or not.
Hoping this is some kind of bad April Fool's joke, the officers follow the man to an abandoned house at the corner of 28th Street and Long Island Avenue. But once inside, no one's laughing.
So the space is completely run down. Clearly this is a house that no one has lived in quite some time. Paint is peeling, it's disheveled. It looks clearly like there's been some drug activity here, maybe some people who have been squatting.
The officers soon make a gruesome discovery. The body of a young black male is lying on the floor with a pool of dried blood around his head.
What was different about the condition of this body is it had no clothes on.
When homicide detectives arrive on the scene, they note the victim has sustained injuries consistent with a beating and possible strangulation.
Those are all indications that it's not an overdose. It's evidence of a physical altercation, a crime that likely resulted in this death.
Authorities begin collecting potential evidence. They find beer cans and duct tape, but the victim's personal effects are nowhere to be found.
There's no ID, there's no wallet, there's nothing there. And so to law enforcement, there are a couple of things going through their minds. Did this person, one, pass away here? Were they just kind of brought and left here?
Investigators could tell that the body had been there for quite some time because of the way his feet were positioned. It seemed like rigor mortis had already set and stiffening of the body limbs were already happening.
This also looks like someone that no one has been looking for. And so law enforcement are thinking, is this a situation where this is where he was staying and so he has no family?
The brutality of the slaying and the use of an abandoned house as the possible execution site leads detectives to believe that they could be dealing with either a gang or drug-related murder. The victim's body is transported to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy.
Through the dental records, they find out that this deceased person is Alan Moore.
22-year-old Alan Moore grew up on Long Island, where he endured a difficult childhood.
He didn't really have a family unit. His mother was unable to raise him. He didn't have any relationship with his father. His grandparents had at one point taken custody of him, but unfortunately they were not able to keep him, and so he had to go into the foster care system. Within the foster care system, he kind of bounced around from house to house.
Alan was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at a young age, which occasionally caused him to lash out. The instability of Alan's living situation did not help his mental health challenges.
For Alan to not really have family, or to not really have people who were behind him, it's very difficult to manage that on your own.
Alan lived in the foster care system until he aged out at 21.
Teens who age out of the foster care system, they don't have a home to go to. They often end up homeless. And so this was really what ended up being Alan Moore's fate, right? And so he kind of becomes transient. He's bouncing around from place to place, staying with friends.
Alan finally found some stability when he moved in with his grandfather in West Hempstead, New York, about 30 miles from Wyandanch.
He was trying to build a relationship where at some point he had moved in with his grandfather, and, you know, he really was trying to find a sense of belonging.
Hoping to make a fresh start, Alan got a job working as an overnight janitor at a soul food restaurant.
Alan's grandfather lived in a rough part of town, you know, at the corner of Terrace Avenue and Jackson Street in the Bedell Terrace apartments.
The Bedell Terrace apartments, they call it the Terrace Ave apartments. It's a low-income housing. It's a lot of crime there.
You know, this could have made it difficult for a kid like Alan, you know, someone who was already struggling trying to get his life moving in the right direction.
Now, investigators want to know how Alan's body wound up in an abandoned house, battered and bloody. An autopsy has confirmed that Alan was strangled to death.
The medical examiner then is able to see that he was, in essence, beaten, right? Almost tortured.
Investigators also learn Alan put up a fight.
There were skin cells underneath Alan's fingernails to indicate that he was struggling with somebody.
Given the state of his body, the medical examiner believes Alan died a few days before he was discovered.
His time of death was either the late hours of March 27th or early hours of March 28th.
The victim was found naked, but there are no signs of sexual trauma.
When you have a new body, it either indicates sexual assault or somebody's hiding identification. So whoever was responsible for this didn't want the person to be identified. It usually indicates that the person who's deceased has some type of relation to the person who's responsible.
Authorities canvass the neighborhood, but no one reports hearing or seeing anything suspicious.
When you think about a crime like this, it shows that there had to have been motive.
But who had motive to kill Alan Moore in such gruesome fashion? Little did police know Alan Moore had been the target of a sinister plot. A plot that, once exposed, would unveil a twisted web of love, loyalty, and deadly deception. On April 1st, 2017, the body of 22-year-old Alan Moore was found in an abandoned house on Long Island, New York. After conducting an autopsy, the Suffolk County medical examiner has confirmed Alan was beaten and strangled to death. Authorities learn Alan's brother, sister, and grandfather all live on Long Island, and they notify them of his death.
And when they speak with the family, it kind of hit a roadblock because Alan's sister tells detectives that she hadn't seen her brother in months.
The fact that they hadn't spoken to him in months was customary. They would hear from him for a little bit, and then he would disappear for maybe months at a time and then reappear. So when law enforcement comes around, they aren't really able to provide any information on who he's been running with.
But Alan's sister does give them a potential lead.
She says that Alan has been dating a woman named Nia Cleveland.
Investigators had suspected the motive for Alan's murder might be personal. Now they wonder if his girlfriend is somehow involved.
Nia tells the police that her and Alan dated, but they broke up about a month ago, and she hadn't seen or talked to him since March 12th or 13th.
Police ask Alan's girlfriend where she was on the night he was killed.
She's able to provide police officers with an alibi for the time frame right, that they're thinking that Alan was killed. And with that time frame and where she says that she was, they're able to kind of clear her as a person of interest.
But Nia does point investigators to a potential motive.
A lot of people had said that he was really involved in some bad situation. Unfortunately, he was also known to walk around with a gun.
Investigators questioned people around Alan's neighborhood and learned that a month before his death, he was a suspect in a shooting at a Hempstead, New York bus station. As investigators look into the Hempstead shooting, they learn something else.
There was also an incident where Alan is jumped by a group of guys.
After searching police records, investigators learn Alan was jumped by a group of young black men about a month before his death. They beat him so severely, he had to be hospitalized for several days.
So now law enforcement are trying to figure out who these men were and why, right? And, did they possibly come back to finish the job?
Investigators now have a possible motive for Alan Moore's murder, but it doesn't make finding his killers any easier.
There's so many different angles. And so trying to figure out who would want him dead, the possibilities for law enforcement and trying to trace back his life becomes very difficult.
Suffolk County Police have learned 22-year-old Alan Moore was severely beaten by a group of young men and hospitalized a month before his murder. They are also looking into allegations that Alan was involved in a local shooting around that same time. They wonder if these two incidents are related, and if they are, did they lead to Alan's untimely death? Police canvassed the Wyandanch neighborhood where Alan was found, questioning everyone they can.
Of course, in the neighborhood that this happens in, no one is talking to law enforcement, right? We're just kind of hearing through the grapevine of, it might have been this person, it might have been connected to this, but they aren't really able to substantiate any of these links that they're just kind of hearing.
Police can't find Alan's phone, but they obtain a warrant to search his social media accounts.
They're able to get into his Facebook messages. And in these Facebook messages are countless messages between him and many other women. It's clear that he had been involved, right, with many different women and was open to being sexually involved with these different women.
Investigators do a deep dive into Alan's online messages. Could one of these women have information about what happened to Alan?
So now police officers are tasked with the daunting, possibility of reaching out or trying to figure out which one of these messages are actually related in any way to this crime. And so they have to kind of see which women did he actually meet up with.
Then, investigators finally uncover something promising. A message dated March 27th.
It just so happens to fall right around the time that they believe Alan was killed.
It's from a woman named Jaquana Bates, asking Alan if he'd like to get together and smoke some weed.
There's a little bit of a flirtatious nature to the text messages, right? That they're gonna meet up.
Alan thought of himself as someone who liked to play around, saw a lot of women. So when Jaquana reached out to him, he thought there was a chance to, have a good time with her.
Investigators know Alan's last address was at the Bedell Terrace Apartments in Hempstead.
One of the steps the police used to figure out what happened was reliance on cameras. And because of the high crime history of the Terrace Apartments, there were plenty of cameras that were established in the area.
Police get the surveillance footage from the Bedell Terrace Apartments around the time that they believe Alan was murdered.
In footage time-stamped March 27th, 2:13 a.m., investigators see a white SUV pull up to the Bedell Terrace Apartments. Then, they see Alan Moore exit the building.
So at 2:13 a.m., they see Alan come out of his apartment and he goes into this car with a young woman. They can't see her face. She has a black hoodie on.
There was a guy in the front seat who got out and got in the back seat, and Alan jumped in the front seat. and the young lady wearing the hood got behind the wheel.
Additional CCTV footage tracks the SUV driving south on Terrace Avenue. The white SUV is captured on surveillance cameras intermittently for the next hour.
At 3:33 a.m., they see the white Chevrolet SUV pull up and a red vehicle pulls up. A black male comes out of the vehicle and goes into the white Chevrolet SUV.
After 10 minutes, both vehicles leave the scene.
With the surveillance the investigators have on the vehicles, at approximately 4 a.m. is the last time that they have on site, so they lose them at that point.
Police run the license plates on the white SUV.
They were able to confirm that the SUV was registered to Daquana Bates.
Daquana Bates, the woman who sent Allen a message inviting him to meet up. Investigators are finally making headway, but then they hit a snag.
They're trying to figure out who this car belongs to, and they hit a roadblock because the registration and the license plates don't match.
One thing investigators have figured out is that the 3 people captured on video are somehow involved in Alan Moore's murder.
With the surveillance footage, investigators were actually able to confirm that these were the people that were with Alan the last time he was alive.
But police still have more questions than answers. If the woman in the footage is Daquana Bates, who is the other man in the white SUV? And who was driving the red sedan?
How do we understand who these people were in this red car and how are they related to the white Chevrolet SUV?
Detectives want to bring Daquana Bates in for questioning. Suffolk County Police have obtained CCTV security footage that captured murder victim Alan Moore being picked up by a woman and a man in a white SUV on the night of March 27th, 2017.
After reviewing surveillance footage, the authorities were able to determine that a white SUV met up with a red sedan, and after about 10 minutes of observation, the police noticed that both of these cars rode off in the same direction.
Investigators have yet to positively ID these people, but they suspect them of being involved in the 22-year-old's brutal slaying, even though the footage does not place them directly at the crime scene.
At this point in their investigation, the authorities are fairly certain that Daquana Bates is the registered owner of a white Chevrolet Trailblazer, a Trailblazer which is an exact match for the vehicle that picked up Alan Moore on March 27th.
But they can't say for certain that, it's Daquana that picked up Alan because the woman in the footage is wearing a hoodie.
When investigators run the plates on the red sedan, they don't match DMV records.
During their investigation, the authorities are able to find out that the red sedan is registered to a married couple, Larry and Sonetta Dennis, who live in Bellport, Long Island.
So now investigators are wondering, what connection does this couple have with Daquana Bates and to Alan Moore?
Investigators start digging into the Dennises and learn that Sonetta has a 27-year-old son named Joshua Nickens, who lives with her and Larry. When authorities run background checks, they discover Joshua did a stint behind bars at the Gouverneur Correctional Facility, and he was just released a month earlier, in February 2017.
As investigators begin questioning individuals in Joshua's Bellport neighborhood, they find out that he has a girlfriend, and her name is Daquana Bates.
26-year-old Daquana Bates grew up in Bellport, Long Island.
She's the middle child of 3 siblings. She has a younger brother and an older sister. Father wasn't really into life, raised by a single mom who was really doing the best she could to raise 3 kids on her own.
At some point, Daquana's mother moved them to Hempstead.
Hempstead is kind of known for being a lower income area of Nassau County. And so we kind of know that this family is doing the best that they can, what they've been given.
By most accounts, Daquana stayed out of trouble. She graduated from Hempstead High School in 2010.
We know from her family members that, Daquana was a relatively good student in high school.
At a young age, Daquana got pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. Now, a single mom like her own mother, Daquana realized she didn't want that kind of life for herself and her child.
When you've grown up in a single-parent household and doesn't really feel like she has any father figures, men kind of possibly coming in and out of the home. And so there's this kind of yearning, right, for that family unit.
Then, Daquana finds what she has been looking for when she meets Joshua Nickens.
She meets Joshua, and they kind of have this whirlwind romance, right? They fall fast, and Daquana falls hard.
Joshua brought her home to meet his mother, Sunetta Dennis, and his stepfather, Larry Dennis.
My understanding is that Sunetta's a strong character. She's the matriarch of this family.
For the first time, she's kind of seeing what a family unit looks like, right? Joshua comes from a home with mom and also has his stepdad, and they welcome Daquana in kind of with open arms, right? And she starts to feel like she really is a part of this family. And so that really binds Daquana to Joshua very quickly.
But what Daquana didn't know yet was that Joshua was in trouble.
Sometime in the relationship, Joshua does a short stint in jail. But at this point in the relationship, Daquana is sticking by her man, right? She decides to stay with him. She waits for him to come out.
Daquana and her infant son move in with Larry and Sunetta while Joshua is in jail.
Daquana felt like she had unconditional love from the Dennis family. They took her in without questions asked, and they took care of her child that wasn't their grandchild. She felt love and she felt an allegiance to them just as much as she did for Joshua.
As investigators worked to connect the dots between Daquana Bates and Alan Moore, they learned Daquana wasn't the only person Larry and Sunetta Dennis opened their home to.
If we think about Larry and Sunetta Dennis, they're kind of like the halfway house, right, for people. They're kind of taking people in, and they are very generous with their home. We know that they take in Daquana. We know that at some point, Alan is staying there.
In a surprising discovery, police learn Alan's ex-girlfriend, Nia Cleveland, is the daughter of Sunetta Dennis and Joshua Nickens' stepsister.
She was the reason why Alan Moore was often in Bellport at the Dennis home, and that's how he came to know them.
They knew he was struggling. He was bouncing from couch to couch at the time, and they wanted to help him out, and it wasn't a problem for Sunetta or Larry to let him stay there for as long as he needed.
But now, police are interested in speaking with the Dennises to find out what they might know about Alan Moore's murder.
Authorities wonder what could possibly have happened between Alan and the Dennises to lead to Alan suffering such a violent demise.
Now police consider a new motive. Did Nia find out about the other women Alan was messaging?
Is this a type of situation with a lover's scorn? Did she find out that Alan had been cheating on her behind her back and therefore gets revenge in this way?
Did Nia ask her brother Joshua to take care of Alan for her?
Or did Joshua find out what Alan had done to his sister and decide to take matters into his own hands?
Is Joshua the other man in the white SUV that picked up Alan that night?
Authorities are considering one more theory. Is it possible Daquana Bates had teamed up with Joshua Nickens and Larry Dennis to set a trap?
And Alan Moore walked right into it.
Suffolk County Police have reviewed video evidence that captured Daquana Bates's white SUV picking up Alan Moore on the night he was murdered. And they know she later met up with a red sedan registered to Larry Dennis. As detectives work to piece together the timeline of events leading up to Alan's murder, they get an anonymous tip.
Joshua's running around town telling people about that he handled his business, that he took care of Alan.
Ironically, Joshua is the one who's talking. You know, criminals do that. Sometimes they have to brag, you know. And he's telling people that, you know, he had to set them straight.
Authorities obtain search warrants for Daquana's SUV, Larry's sedan, and the Dennis home. Among the potential evidence they recover at the residence are 2 electronic tablets, a mini computer, and a cell phone. Police also find 2 cell phones in Daquana's SUV. The cell phones prove to be the most telling. Now that authorities have the cell phone evidence, They tracked the movements of their suspects on the night of Alan's murder.
They were able to find the tower pings on the cell phones, which wind up indicating that these cell phones were at the scene of the crime, at the time indicated where Alan Moore was murdered.
They know that at some point in time, right, all of these people were together. We know that Daquana picks up Alan. We know Joshua's in the car. Larry joins Joshua and Daquana and Alan. But from that moment after, we have no idea what happens. They don't know exactly what happened at Wyandanch.
The cell phones become a very important piece of evidence, serving as a smoking gun in this case. One of the cell phones is registered to Daquana, and the other cell phone is registered to Alan.
Now, when they trace the cell phone towers and pings, they're able to determine that, everybody was together in Hempstead. And then 2 of them go to Wyandanch. And not only that, they met up in the exact same place where Alan is murdered, but one of them didn't return.
And authorities still don't know who killed Alan Moore. Investigators obtain arrest warrants, and on July 11th, 2017, Joshua Nickens and Daquana Bates are taken into custody in Shirley, New York.
Once Joshua and Daquana were taken in custody, they were separated and they were questioned separately.
Joshua was very quiet. Police brought in some food and fed him, hoping that would make him a more cooperating witness. However, all he did was ask for his attorney.
Joshua had just been released from prison 6 months earlier, and now he's possibly facing another prison sentence. That had to be weighing on his mind.
Across the hall, Daquana is also proving to be uncooperative.
Daquana's likely thinking, we're in this all or nothing. And so she makes the decision that she is going to go 100% full force with Joshua and do this for him, right? And stay tight-lipped.
Aside from protecting her man, there's something else weighing on Daquana. She is several months pregnant with Joshua's baby.
She's just thinking about the life that's growing inside of her and how she cannot allow Joshua to go back to prison and not be a father to her child.
Later that same day, police arrest a 3rd suspect in Alan Moore's murder, Joshua's stepdad, Larry Dennis. But unlike Joshua and Daquana, Larry is more than willing to talk.
Larry Dennis, when he was arrested, told detectives plenty.
Larry tells police that Alan dated his stepdaughter, Nia Cleveland, in 2016, and that Alan frequently stayed at the Dennis home while Joshua was in jail. But Larry says in February of 2016, Alan took advantage of their generosity.
We find out that Alan stole a PlayStation from the home.
At some point, Joshua makes a call back home, and they're telling him about the fact that this guy, Alan, had the nerve to steal the PlayStation. This is how infuriating the parents were about this. Like, somebody coming into the home that they allowed in, they fed you, and you got the nerve to steal the PlayStation out of the house?
Sonetta, she feels hurt when she feels like this person who'd been in their home has betrayed them. And Josh is her son. He wants to do right by his mom, and she wants him to do what needs to be done.
He becomes very agitated. He takes this very personally. And so while he's in prison, he's already kind of making claims that, when he gets out, Alan is gonna pay.
Larry says when Joshua was released from prison in February 2017, he told Larry, Sonetta, and Daquana that they needed to get revenge on Alan, and they came up with a plan.
He told them of his involvement, and he told them that he was aware that Josh had gone too far, done more than what the plan was.
Larry says the plan was to rough up Alan for stealing the PlayStation and teach him a lesson about disrespecting people. But Joshua went overboard.
Larry didn't know what was going to happen either, because he was easily led by those around him.
He, in his statement to law enforcement, notes that Joshua took things too far, that this wasn't their intention, but that Joshua has a tendency to do this, right? To take things too far.
Larry says he tried to stop his stepson, but he was out of control. Larry said he regretted his involvement in Alan's murder. As investigators had suspected, Alan Moore was killed in a revenge plot, but not for cheating on Nia Cleveland. It was over a video game. A few months later, on September 18th, Sunetta Dennis is arrested at a local restaurant. Like her husband, she gives a full confession about her involvement in Alan's murder.
It's interesting that the parents are the ones who ended up talking, because they were the primary ones who were egging on this revenge plot, this teaching Alan a lesson. I think in all of this, no one anticipated that Joshua would take things to the level that it went. And so once it got that far, it's almost as if Larry and Sunetta had already decided that they're not going down for this.
Sunetta reiterates that the plan was to beat Alan up, not kill him. Sunetta says in the early morning hours of March 27th, Larry called and asked her to meet him, Joshua, and Daquana in West Hempstead. Then Sunetta returned home, where she waited for Larry to call her to pick him up. She says Daquana and Joshua returned home several hours later, at 7 a.m.
At that point, Daquana told her that Alan was dead and that Joshua strangled him. I don't think Sunetta thought it was gonna go that far. I honestly don't think any of them did. But by the time, it was no turning back.
Suffolk County Police have arrested 26-year-old Daquana Bates, 27-year-old Joshua Nickens, and 49-year-old Larry Dennis for the murder of Alan Moore. 43-year-old Sunetta Dennis, who has yet to be charged in connection with the murder, says her son Joshua killed Alan in a revenge plot gone awry. Eventually, Daquana also makes a full confession.
Daquana, along with Larry and Sunetta, said that Joshua came up with a plan to get Alan back for stealing his PlayStation and disrespecting the family, and that he asked her to help him along with the plan.
She had this family that she went home to, and they took care of her, and she took care of them, and she had an allegiance to that family because of that.
That allegiance drove Daquana to make a fateful decision. She says, at Joshua's request, she found Alan online and sent him a message.
Daquana lures Alan in through a Facebook message, posing as someone who wants to get to know him, says that, do they want to smoke or whatever.
Alan fell for the ruse and agreed to meet Daquana on the night of March 27th, 2017. Daquana says before arriving, they dropped Larry off on a side street.
Daquana picks him up at that apartment where he's staying at in West Hempstead at 2:13 a.m. and with Joshua in the car.
Daquana tells Alan that Joshua is her brother and that she needs to drop him off somewhere. And after that, they can go smoke weed.
Alan says, no problem, right? Doesn't see an issue with this.
From there, they drove to the location where Larry was waiting.
His specific role wasn't clear at the beginning, but it later emerged that he was a big guy, so he was sort of like the projected muscle. He was there for intimidation.
When Alan saw Larry, he became alarmed, sensing he was in danger.
Alan recognizes Larry. Knowing what he did, he jumps out of the car and starts running. Joshua and Larry catch up with Alan, pistol whip him, get him back in the car, tie him up.
Daquana tells police that after a brief meeting with Sunetta, she, Joshua, and Larry drove around until they found an abandoned house in Wyandanch. Larry stayed in the car while she and Joshua took Alan into the basement.
Daquana's thinking that we're just gonna beat him up, teach him a lesson, teach him not to disrespect our home, and then we're gonna leave him there.
Once in the basement, Daquana says she kicked Alan.
Daquana had signed up for a beating. She was fine with kicking him. She was fine with hitting him. It became something more than that.
At some point, Daquana gets concerned. She watches Joshua start to choke Alan and continue to choke Alan to the point where he's losing breath, he's losing consciousness.
Josh had a ligature around Alan's neck, and he was strangled to death in front of her eyes.
There's a lot of things going through Daquana's head, I'm sure, trying to figure out what exactly did she wrap herself into. Daquana almost has to make a decision on the spot, right? What am I going to do? And so in this moment, she's thinking, we're a family, and so we're going to deal with this together.
Daquana says they stripped Alan's clothes, collected his belongings, and returned home. That's when Joshua realized he lost something that could tie him back to the murder.
Joshua realizes that he loses his phone, and Sunita goes back to where they met up with each other before to see if they can find Josh's phone somewhere on the floor.
But the phone is never recovered. Daquana says later that day, they burned Alan's clothes and belongings. On March 1st, 2019, authorities had enough to charge Joshua Nickens.
We took a plea deal. He pled guilty to murder in the first degree, 2 counts of murder in the second degree, and 1 count of kidnapping in the first degree. He was sentenced to 20 years to life.
At the sentencing hearing, Suffolk County District Attorney Timothy D. Sini said he believed Joshua got what he deserved.
The district attorney said that Alan's murder was a heinous act that was fueled by revenge. Kill somebody for suspecting that they stole a video game, that's just incomprehensible.
Sunetta Dennis was charged with murder in the second degree, and Larry Dennis was charged with murder in the second degree and kidnapping in the first degree. Daquana Bates was charged with murder in the second degree and kidnapping in the first degree.
Daquana eventually took a deal, resulting in her plea to a lesser charge of manslaughter, and as a result, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Nia Cleveland was cleared of any wrongdoing in Alan's murder. The people responsible
for you. And so for women who don't have that, who don't come from those backgrounds, ending up in such unhealthy relationships.
It's been said that if you love someone, let them go.
He had the perm, he had hip-hop, bravado, but also his own set of weird idiosyncrasies that made him stand out.
If they come back again, they're yours to keep.
She made this huge commitment by leaving her life behind and coming to New York. The lustful relationship that they had, it was exciting. It was moving really quickly.
But what if you aren't the only lover they've lured in?
She was hurt, she was heartbroken, but she also felt like, you know what? I just have to do something else to get his attention.
And the sting of jealousy is so severe, you could kill.
Just imagine how police have now potentially encountered somebody who may be a danger to people.
They see a person lying face down on the ground with blood coming from his head. His whole life flashed before his eyes, and he just threw up right there on the scene.
September 22nd, 2006, Fort Lee, New Jersey. It's a chilly Friday night in this commuter neighborhood just outside of New York City.
Fort Lee, New Jersey. It's at the foot of the George Washington Bridge, and it has a lot of restaurants. It has a lot of local spas and eateries for people to just enjoy themselves when they're coming home from work or if they want to hang out on the weekend. And it's literally right there, beautiful views across the Hudson River looking at New York City.
It is generally a safe place with a very effective police department. But like any community, it has the proximity and the opportunity where somebody who wants to do something bad can find the place to do it.
At approximately 4:40 p.m., the Fort Lee Police Department receives a panicked call from the front desk attendant.
A desk person who's working wee hours of the morning calls the 911 to the Fort Lee Police to say that there's been a shooting.
They're doing their regular shift, and all of a sudden, this man comes downstairs saying to call 911 because someone got shot in room 408.
But before the front desk clerk could gather any more details, the man took off.
The front desk clerk assumed the person ran back up to that room. In his frantic mode, he left the tape on the front desk counter.
The clerk says that he was hesitant to follow him, but he didn't feel much safer in the lobby of the hotel either.
Possible person who was either involved in it or is a victim of the shooting is still in the facility because the front desk clerk said nobody left through the front door.
The 911 operator tells the clerk to stay put and wait for the police because they are on the way.
The Fort Lee Police Department is approximately 3/4 of a mile or a mile away from this location. I dare say they were there very, very quickly.
The police are trying to keep the clerk calm. They ask him if he can tell them anything about the man that's staying in room 408.
The clerk says all he knows is that the room is registered to a man named Alan Plowden. Alan Plowden and David Taylor, both Florida natives, carved a complex mortgage and mail fraud scheme, manipulated the financial system to siphon off massive sums of money, crafting a life of luxury from ill-gotten gains.
So David and Alan knew each other going back for many years. They lived in and scammed people in Miami and Atlanta.
David and Alan's criminal partnership spanned many years, thriving in the shadows in the vibrant scenes of Miami and Atlanta, where they perfected their craft and deception and lived off the riches of their elaborate schemes. Their operation amassed a fortune, peaking with a staggering $1.4 million from a single fraudulent transaction.
David was in New York with bags of money, literally, and he was looking to have that type of lifestyle in the New York City scene.
As the cash flowed, their descent into the criminal abyss deepened, setting the stage for a tragic chain of events. The moment they arrive, Fort Lee police head straight for Alan Plowden's room, number 408, but not without putting a careful plan in play first.
The officers are walking into this scene as if there is an active shooter on site. So they have their guns drawn already, and they're making their way up to the 4th floor.
They get to the 4th floor without a problem, but as soon as they were approaching room 408, they were surprised by a man who was running out the room shirtless.
Rather than the person come towards them, he runs and grows back into a room. Police have now potentially encountered somebody who may be a danger to people in the hotel, to the police, to people who otherwise might be in the room. They're on high alert.
So now they're bringing out more tactic equipment, the shields, the battering ram, and they're making their way closer to that front door. And when they get there, they're trying to talk to the people who are on the other side, but they really couldn't make out who was speaking towards them.
Officers place a call to room 408. To their surprise, a woman answers the phone.
She identifies herself as Jennifer Nettles, and at that point, police are thinking this might be a hostage situation.
She's mentioned that somebody has been shot. She mentions the word gun. Police at that point don't know if the gunman or the gun person is in the room, don't know if there's a gun, and don't know if she herself is in some sort of jeopardy.
Eventually, she explains that it's herself in the room, the gentleman that the officer saw go back inside the room, Alan Plowden, and then there's a person who was shot that's on the floor. David Taylor, who's friends with Alan Plowden.
Now, of course, hearing that somebody is injured inside the room, police are hoping that they can get in there and, do something to save this individual. But in order to do that, they have to get inside the room.
Police have to make instant judgments as to what they do. Are they walking into a trap, or in fact, are they going in to relieve and help people who otherwise might be victims of a crime?
Fort Lee police have been called to a local Holiday Inn, where a man has reportedly been shot inside room 408. But with no idea where the gunman could be now, officers must handle the situation with extreme caution.
So their first concern is safety, okay? Are they themselves safe? They know there's been some sort of a shooting. They want to make sure that they themselves are not walking into a trap.
Although Jennifer is telling the negotiator that the people in the room are who they are, the officers really truly don't know if this is true.
They also have a duty. And if somebody is shot inside the room, they're gonna need medical attention. And with an injury like that, every second counts.
So they're talking to her and they're explaining to her to relay information to Alan for him to step out. And as soon as he steps out, he had a backpack on his back and wearing shorts. The officers then handcuffed him, put him on the ground. They check him for any weapons that are possibly on him.
And it seems that his appearance in that less than full garb can assure them that he doesn't have a gun in a pocket and a jacket in some way secreted from them.
Still, he does have a backpack. When police search the bag, they don't find a weapon, but potentially a motive. It's a scenario that would certainly make sense, given the hotel's location.
Between here and the George Washington Bridge into Upper Manhattan and to further up through New England is a major drug corridor. To the George Washington Bridge, probably the most traveled bridge in the United States. Several different roadways, including Route 95, the main corridor between north and south in the United States along the eastern seaboard, and Route 80, which basically starts a mile or two from here, will take you all the way to California. That proximity is good for tourists, but it also gives access to those who think ill, who can use these locations for criminality. Lo and behold, the mystery continues by opening the bag, and now you find $30,000. It's not what's usually in a person's backpack. It's cash, it's a big amount. There must be a drug deal that has had to have gone on or didn't go on or went bad.
But if this was a drug deal gone wrong, police are left wondering what the woman, Jennifer, had to do with it.
Jennifer comes out and she only has her underwear on.
The obvious might be that there might be some trade that has been going on in that particular, whether simply for frivolity, for fun, or for money.
The officers check her, obviously, for any other types of weapons, and they also handcuff her as well.
Alan and Jennifer are transported to a police cruiser downstairs to await further questioning. Meanwhile, police go searching for their room's third occupant, the shooting victim, David Taylor.
Officers then enter in the hotel room in room 408, and they see a person lying face down on the ground with blood coming from his head.
Clearly, when they see the individual, while they're sympathetic and hopeful that the person may still be able to be rendered medical attention, it becomes clear from the blood, from the failure to move, from a touch, that the person has been shot and killed.
The room itself looked like it was ransacked, like there might have been some type of scuffle. The sheets are out of place. The mattress is flipped over. There's a shirt that's torn apart. There was just clearly something that happened here prior to the shooting.
The man doesn't have any ID on him. He appears to be wearing pajamas, but what he does have on him is a key card to a room on the second floor.
They find out that David was actually also a guest in the hotel as well and was staying on the second floor. So the officers go down to the second floor hotel room.
They go in a room, they find a startled young lady wondering what has occurred. Here comes the next puzzle piece. What is she doing in the room?
The woman's name is Mercedes Cantu. She tells police she was called up earlier that night by the shooting victim, David Taylor, who was visiting from Miami for the week.
While David was up here in New York, David had called Mercedes to hang out, go shopping, to just chill. And he told Mercedes that he had a friend in town, Alan Plowden, and he wanted to know if she had any friends for the both of them to hang out with. Mercedes then told David about her friend Jennifer Nettles. They both were sex workers.
There was a night of enjoyment, entertainment.
As the night goes on, they go to their own separate quarters. They have hotel rooms set up for them, David on the 2nd floor, Alan on the 4th floor.
But not long after Mercedes and David got back to the room, David gets a text message, and he tells Mercedes that he has to, go check on something in room 408. That was the last time that Mercedes saw David.
Police bring Jennifer Nettles and Alan Plowden into the station for questioning.
Police have to find out what's going on. They have to be able to speak to people who will provide them information, both as evidence and a lead to where the suspect or suspects may in fact be.
They're really honing in on Jennifer's account because she was in the room where David was shot.
What they'll do is, of course, they'll separate the people so you can get their whole version of what happened.
Jennifer's story starts off a lot like Mercedes' story. They were headed out for a night on the town, and then when they came back to the hotel, they each went off to their own rooms.
Jennifer says that after they were in the hotel room and they were sleeping, Alan gets 2 phone calls.
That's when the night took a dangerous turn.
She gets up to go to the bathroom. It's the middle of the night, and there's a knock on the door. When she goes to answer the door, there's a man and a woman on the other side.
The unexpected visitors tell Jennifer they're there to see a man named Jay. Convinced they have the wrong room, Jennifer tries to close the door.
The woman on the other side puts her foot in the middle of the door to prevent it from closing, and then the gentleman on the other side has a handgun that's pointing in her face.
You see this instrument of death right in front of you. So now, what might have been the uncertainty or surprise that somebody's got a foot in their door has now quadrupled in terms of fear factor.
So she lets the door open, and as they walk inside, Jennifer gets shoved into the bathroom with that woman. And that woman starts to duct tape her mouth, her hands. She bounds her to keep quiet, and she threatens her before leaving the bathroom and going into the room itself. All she can hear on the other side of the door is scuffling and noise and rustling, and Jennifer starts to take note of the tone of voices that she's hearing through the walls, and it seemed like the woman knew Alan.
Fort Lee police are meeting with Jennifer Nettles, a witness to the hotel shooting of David Taylor. Jennifer claims she was trapped and bound with duct tape in the bathroom of his friend Alan's hotel room after the 2 suspects barged in.
Can you imagine the fear in Jennifer? Now, she's just listening to what's going on. Alan is in the middle of it with a gun in his face.
And then a gun goes off, and people leave the hotel room. What Jennifer's hearing through the wall is not exactly going to help in the investigation. They want to hear more of what happened when they interacted with Alan.
Across the hall, police sit down with the second hotel witness, Alan Plowden.
Alan tells investigators that he was sleeping while Jennifer was in the bathroom and all the other commotion was going on.
When he finally does wake up, Alan confirms Jennifer's hunch. He hears the voice of a woman that he recognizes.
He recognizes this voice, somebody he has had a relationship with, who he has spent time with, and who he has spoken to. It's somebody he knows as Gina Conway.
Gina Conway was a 29-year-old exotic dancer who grew up in North Carolina's Piedmont region.
She also had ties in Baltimore County, Maryland. Her mom lived in Baltimore, remarried, and her family was still living in North Carolina. So she went back and forth a lot between those two cities. In the early 2000s, Gina would mostly spend her time in North Carolina, not only because of family, but she had a boyfriend of 10 years that still lived back home. So she was really there a lot. And during that time, hip hop was coming through with some new flavor, and she was into, and so was her boyfriend, a group called Dipset.
Dipset, which the sort of core group is Cameron, Jim Jones, Joel Santana, and then, you have a lot of other Hell Rel, J.R. Ryder, Freaky Zeke.
And there was a lot of people that was in this crew that they were able to make a lot of hit records that are still known to this day.
When Gina learned that Dipset was coming through town, she jumped at the chance to get concert tickets with her boyfriend. After the show, she managed to get them invited backstage.
Gina's that kind of person that she doesn't have a hard time getting along with people. She has that charisma. She's able to talk her way into any kind of door. So while Gina was backstage with her boyfriend, she happens to meet one of those entourage members, Charlie Wingate, AKA Max Bigavelli, AKA Max B.
Max B had that same mix of sort of classic New York hip hop, bravado, but also his own set of weird idiosyncrasies that made him stand out. He had the perm, he had sort of straight up R&B songs. He's a charming guy. Every project he's released in his career has at least a few love songs. He's always talked about sort of emotional vulnerability being the hallmark of the music he makes, and a lot of that is very flirtatious and romantic.
Max B giving her any type of attention really did intrigue her to the point where she might have forgot she was there with her boyfriend. After the concert, Max B and Gina exchanged phone numbers.
After weeks of exchanging texts and calls, Gina was finally ready to ditch her life in North Carolina for a future with this alluring new man.
So Gina comes up to New York, and she's living with Charlie in his apartment. He's in the studio, he's doing shows at night, he's touring, and Gina's working as an exotic dancer at the Sin City nightclub. The lustful relationship that Gina and Max had, it was exciting. It was moving really quickly.
But a relationship with the rising hip-hop artist also came with a lot of heartache.
2 months after Max and Gina realize that this relationship isn't working and Gina moves back home, Max starts blowing her phone up. Baby, come back kind of conversations.
She came back to New York, and there was some controversy around his having impregnated a woman.
Obviously, Gina's gonna be pissed. Why are you wooing me? Why are you trying to make me feel like I'm the only woman when you have a whole situation and a whole baby on the way? So while Gina's trying to figure out everything, thankfully, she gets her job back at Sin City. She was hurt, she was heartbroken, but she also felt like, you know what? If he cared about me enough to bring me back here after I left already, then I just have to do something else to get his attention. Days prior to the robbery, she saw David and she saw Alan at the club and hung out with them, and they wanted to hang out with her because she just had a way with them.
In the last few days, Alan and David had enjoyed several more outings with Gina.
They went out after that first meetup and hung out where they went shopping at a mall in Bergen County, bought a lot of expensive stuff, and she had a great time with them, and they had a great time with her. And they wanted to hang out with her even more times after that.
But never would Alan have thought the next time he saw Gina, she'd be robbing him.
Alan tells investigators he's thinking he might be dreaming because he's hearing Gina's voice in this hotel room. But when he opens his eyes, he has a gun in his face. And a man who's holding the gun, he doesn't recognize him, but he also notices that the gunman has this scar on his cheek. The guy with the gun is asking him, where's the money at? And he's like, what money? He gets hit in the face. Gina's starting to tie him up with the tape that she used to tie up Jennifer, puts the duct tape around his face, his mouth, his eyes, his hands. And They keep asking him, where's the money? He tells them that he has $700 underneath the mattress. So they flip the mattress and they're still telling him that where's the rest of the money?
It's a dynamic situation. And what must be going through his head is he's trying to figure out, somebody knows there's money here. Who would know?
Based on what Alan is telling law enforcement, he had all the money that he knew these robbers were looking for, but Alan knew that he needed to hide his valuables even before this whole situation happened because he has a strange woman in his room.
Still, Alan knew that these robbers weren't leaving until they got what they wanted. So he told them that the money was hidden away in his friend's room.
So the gunman tells him, call your friend.
He gets on the phone with David, who's on the second floor, and tells David in a weird way that he is in trouble, but he needs him to come upstairs.
David coming upstairs may just simply think that it's a physical confrontation, fist on fist, mano a mano. You don't bring fists to a gunfight. And what happens is he now is confronted by and sees the presence of a gun.
And as soon as the door opens, the gunman and David, they start to scuffle. Alan is laying on the ground. He tells investigators that his friend David and this gunman scuffle and his friend gets shot in the head. The guy and Gina are grabbing whatever that they can find in the room, and then they leave the hotel room. Alan tells investigators that after the gunman and Gina left the hotel room, he goes to Jennifer in the bathroom to get her out of her own restraints.
Alan then ran downstairs to try to catch Gina and her accomplice before they could get away.
But he actually catches up with Gina, and he hits her. She somehow gets away from him and darts out of the hotel. The guy she came with was already in the taxi cab, and they took off.
Gina knows that Alan can recognize her from the crime scene, so she probably wants to get as far away from the crime scene as possible. So now you have a suspect on the run.
The survivor of a Fort Lee hotel robbery turned murder has just identified a viable suspect in the case. But so far, police have no leads on where 29-year-old Gina Conway could have fled from there.
As investigators are trying to figure out where's Gina, who she was with in this cab, developments start to come in.
Hotels were among the first places to really have cameras because they have to protect themselves from their own liability. Stuff happening at a hotel.
They weren't everywhere as you see it these days. So the police were able to at least get the license plate and the cab numbers that were called to chauffeur Gina and whoever else around that night. And they were able to track down the cab driver.
Investigators asked the cab driver what he remembers from the night he drove Gina and her companion to the hotel.
You find the cab driver. You find the cab driver's location. You find the log that he might have. And with that, now you've got names.
The driver tells them that he picked up Kelvin Learnham, and that person told him where to go. It was different locations. They stopped at a gas station and ended up at different Holiday Inn locations until they found the right one on Route 4.
He says that when they finally got to the right hotel, they asked him to wait for them. And Gina said, they'd only be a few minutes.
The cabbie said that he wound up waiting about an hour, and when they emerged from the hotel, the guy had changed his clothes, and they were both carrying bags. The man gave him an address back in Harlem, and that's where he dropped both of the passengers off.
So now investigators have Gina Conway and they have Kelvin Learnham, who are the two people inside the taxi cab that was driving around.
But when police trace the Harlem address back to a public basketball court, it seems like a dead end, until they realize the address is just blocks from another location that's come up in their investigation.
Police then start doing more investigating, and they find the Sin City address to where Gina was working.
Police drop in on the club where Alan Plowden told them he met Gina just a few days earlier. It's there they uncover another valuable clue.
Now, police are looking through her records from the club, and they find that she's listed an unknown address as her place of residence. This isn't the hotel address, it isn't a family address. It's not even her ex-boyfriend Max B's address. But it does turn out to be the address of a coworker. Turon Golston.
According to co-workers, Turon is a bouncer for the club. Gina saw him like a big brother, someone she could confide in, someone who would protect her.
Police immediately head for Turon's address with a warrant in hand. But when they arrive, there's no sign of Gina, but there's plenty more of interest.
They found a lot of things that were taken out of the hotel. They found Alan's cell phone inside of Turon's apartment, so they got a subpoena for that.
The police also find Alan's clothes and laptop in Turon's apartment.
Can you imagine the surprise when Mr. Golston is told by the police that evidence taken from the scene of a murder is now found in his house, that he seemingly had nothing to do with? Of course, he's going to say where he got it. Gina brought it over to him.
Turon doesn't seem to have any information about the items that are in his house. And he's missing one key piece of evidence attributed to the shooter, a scar on his cheek. It was clear that Gina had been here recently. Now police just needed to wait for her to come back.
Are hot on the trail of a suspect in the shooting death of David Taylor inside a local hotel. But 6 days after the crime, Gina Conway and her accomplice remain in the wind.
They're looking for her because now we have a suspect on the loose, if you will.
Law enforcement can get a communications data warrant to pinpoint where somebody might have been at a given hour at a given time. So for example, if the phone pings for a location in Fort Lee at 4 o'clock in the morning on the date in question, you got the phone there.
Armed with Gina's phone number from her personnel file, police are able to trace her mobile device to a location in Harlem.
And they do pick her up not too far away at a subway station in Harlem.
She was living life on the run for a period of time. Life on the run because she was either witness or participating in something serious or something that she might have thought was far different than what she had originally planned to do.
But by the time police bring her back to the station, Gina is ready to come clean.
She gets into the precinct and investigators are kind of shocked because she's just willing to tell them anything. She didn't ask for a lawyer and she just starts talking.
Gina tells police that it all started when she found out her boyfriend was having a baby with another woman.
It's one of those things that you're like, okay, I'm here. What do I need to do to make sure that he knows that I should be the only person he's focusing all his time and energy on? And Gina is just in fight or flight mode. She's just trying to figure it out while also her feelings are hurt.
So I think it's logical that she maybe wanted to make him a little bit jealous.
As the investigators are talking to Gina, she tells them she told her boyfriend Max B about the shopping spree that she went on with David and Alan. She was bragging to Max to make him jealous, to show that other men are showing her attention. 2 big ballers who are taking her shopping. She thought this was going to entice him to say, let me step up and be a better boyfriend to her.
It has an opposite effect. He sees it potentially as opportunity. We'll go get him. We'll see if we can make a fast rip, get the money from what sounds to me that Wingate thought was an easy mark.
The jealous boyfriend, Max B, is coming up with this whole plan to rob these 2 dudes who just took his girlfriend out and showed her a good time. And at that moment, Gina doesn't stop him from this plan, according to what she's telling the investigators. She kind of leans into it like, wow, he's including me in something that we can do together.
With Max B's encouragement, Gina makes a date with David and Alan on the morning of September 22nd.
They had a fun outing, but David and Alan had to cut things short with Gina because they were getting ready to hang out with Jennifer and Mercedes. So as she prepared to head out, Gina asked to borrow Alan's room key to use the restroom before she left. Then she walked out of the hotel without returning the key.
Gina tells investigators that they all met at the park to really plot out this plan. It was herself, Max B, as well as Kelvin, his stepbrother. Gina had that room key to get access to Alan's room where the money, she believed, was. And she also knew that Alan was gonna be out with David at a nightclub with these 2 young ladies. So if once they get in the room, they can clean it up, get out. They won't even know it was Gina or anybody involved with getting into their room. And as they're being sent off that night in the taxi cab that Max calls to have this whole thing happen, he tells Gina in a reassuring manner that if you do this, you're my girl, you're the one. Almost like a proposal in some kind of way. And she knew she had to make this plan work in order for her to get that goal.
But when they arrive that night, Gina says things didn't go according to plan.
When Gina got to the hotel, she went to room 408 and the room key didn't work. Unbeknownst to her, Alan had to change in the room keys earlier that day because it just didn't work for him. So she decided to knock at the door, and that's when Jennifer answered.
She starts to tell that, in fact, what she thought that there would be a ripoff of these people now evolved into something far, far more dangerous.
Up until that point, Gina's feeling kind of angsty because they're not finding the right hotel, the room key isn't working, and as that's happening, she sees that Kelvin has a gun and duct tape on him. It's not a part of the plan.
Kelvin holds the gun up to Alan's head and demands the money. That's when Alan offers them the $700 hidden under his mattress.
Gina's aware that he has a suitcase or a book bag that he walks around with a lot of money. And he's still saying, I don't have the money, but then he says that his friend downstairs has it.
By this point, they had already come too far, and Gina felt like she couldn't back down. She tried to focus on the plan of getting the room key from David so that they can go down to the second floor to get the money. But then the shot was fired as she watched her new friend David fall dead to the ground. They ran, headed for the second floor as fast as they could, but they did not count on Alan breaking free and running after them. As he followed them into the hall, they had no choice but to abort the mission.
Gina tells investigators that she took the $700 over to Charlie's sister-in-law's house, and while they were there, he had promised her that he would take care of her and that he was sorry about what happened.
As police sit across from the tearful suspect, they can see that Gina is sorry too. Nevertheless, on this day, Gina was charged with manslaughter.
That's when police offered Gina a deal. Turn in your accomplices and we'll make things easier for you. But Gina had already done so much for Max B. Was she really capable of turning against him and his stepbrother?
Gina Conway has just confessed to her part in the robbery and murder of David Taylor inside a Fort Lee hotel room. Now, police are eager to get her boyfriend Max B and his stepbrother, Kelvin Leerdam, also behind bars.
They subpoena everybody's cell phone that they had a suspicion of being a part of this crime, Kelvin's especially as well. And so at that point, the police are putting two and two together. Cell phone towers are pinging. It shows that Gina, Kelvin, and Max and the taxi cab driver were at that gas station at the time that she said they were. And it also shows that Alan, Gina, were at the hotel with Kelvin all at the same time when the robbery did occur.
Coupled with Alan Plowden's statement about the shooter having a scar, police are able to arrest Kelvin Leerdam.
Police then apprehend Charlie Wingate and he is charged with murder. And when they talk to him, he's not giving them anything. He's tight-lipped, doesn't even say that he knows anybody involved in this case.
Without anything directly tying Max B to the crime scene, police know his conviction hinges on Gina's cooperation.
It's a homicide, it's a robbery, it's a felony murder. Those type of ties, once you are acting in concert, you can equally get the same amount as somebody who pulled the trigger. Kelvin and Max B were facing life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Cooperators, people who are involved in the crime, who ultimately agree to testify on behalf of the state. The strength or the weakness of that witness is often measured. Gina's story matched Plowden's story, matched Jennifer's story, without them being any connection really between them that would lend to them telling and making up a story together.
Because Gina was able to dime out her boyfriend and Kelvin, who was the shooter in this whole entire case, she was able to negotiate a lesser sentence of only 15 years flat.
On June 9, 2009, Max B. and Kelvin Leardam are found guilty of felony murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy.
They were convicted of each and every one of the crimes, which included weapons, which included a kidnapping that they factored or coercion that they held them in. A judge could very well, and did in this set of circumstances, sentence them consistent with their roles. Gina was a facilitator. Wingate was the mastermind, but the greatest damage was done by the shooter.
Kelvin received a maximum life sentence, and Max B was sentenced to a very extensive sentence of over 50 years.
Almost immediately, the verdict against Max B ignites an uproar in the hip-hop community.
People are looking at it as, oh, this man's entire life. So that naturally sent shockwaves within hip-hop. There was also a perception that the severity of his sentence was not, to some people, reflective of his level of involvement in the crime in question.
There's this whole Free Max B movement that has percolated after he was sentenced, and it's continued throughout the years.
The movement has led to moderate successes.
Kelvin tried his attempt to get a reduced sentence. That didn't work. Gina tried to get her sentence reduced, even though she already had a negotiated plea. That was rejected as well. Max B was the only person whose post-conviction review ended where there was a reduced sentence.
Max B gets his conviction lowered to 20 years. He is set to be released in 2025.
When he got his sentence reduced, hip-hop fans of his and others felt there's going to be a future of Max B to come as soon as he gets out.
He's released music through a few different sort of smaller independent labels. He doesn't talk a ton about exactly how he records the music, the new music. There's lots of rappers who, while incarcerated, have recorded songs over a phone in prison, and it's not clear if that's what Max is doing. He doesn't really address the case that explicitly. He's done a lot of love songs. He's maintained his innocence, maintained sort of a positive outlook on, when I get out, things are gonna be great.
Gina thought that he really wanted to be with her, but his intentions, as she saw that first day, were not genuine. I wish that Gina packed her bags and went back home to where her family was and try to win back that gentleman that was with her for 10 years so that she could have had a different outcome at life. Unfortunately, she wasted 15 years behind bars because of a man that she thought was for her. And she did all this for her man that was not ever really her man.
Almost like the Wild West of technology. Everyone could see his talent. To lose such an amazing person was just devastating.
She explains that her husband may be alive or dead. She doesn't know because she didn't check.
She was speaking in a very matter-of-fact way, very monotone. This was shocking.
She is concerned that she's losing everything.
I'm not scared.
It wasn't just sex with a stripper anymore. He was supporting someone else.
I was supposed to be with her.
The question was, did she plan to do it?
I couldn't live with my heart being broken every day.
January 1st, 2009, Pomona, California. Just 2 hours into the new year, 21-year-old Jessica Davidson receives a phone call.
She's leaving a New Year's Eve party with her boyfriend when she gets an unexpected phone call from her mother.
Her mom's name is Adrienne Davidson. So Adrienne calls her daughter Jessica to come to the house. And she says, I will tell you when you get here, I need you to just come.
Jessica and her boyfriend rush to the Davidson home, where Adrienne lives with her husband, Ezra, and Jessica's younger brother,
When they got to the house, Adrian was outside in the driveway waiting for them.
And she says, okay, I need you to take your brother to your grandparents' house.
She makes a second request.
Adrian announces that she needs the boyfriend to take her somewhere. Jessica asks where, and in response, Adrian says the police station.
Confused but seeing her mom's urgency, Jessica goes inside to wake her brother.
It's kind of spooky, kind of weird. She's not sure what's happening.
Adrienne Renee Pert was born in 1962 in West Orange, New Jersey. She grew up in an upper-middle-class household with her parents and 3 siblings.
Adrienne's dad was a well-to-do dentist. She had 2 younger sisters by the same mom, and then they also had an older half-sister. For whatever reason, it seemed to be that Adrienne had somewhat of a difficult place in her family.
Adrienne's dad would question her intelligence. He would call her stupid. He would say she was sexually promiscuous. He would take a switch and spank her with things he didn't do to the other daughters.
After high school, her father sent her to Spelman College, which is an HBCU located in Atlanta, Georgia.
One of the things he did was make it really clear to her that even though he was sending her to college, his goal for her really was not so much that she get an education, but that she find a husband.
True to form, her father set up a blind date for her once she got down to Atlanta with the son of one of his college buddies. A gentleman named Ezra Davidson, who was a college student at nearby Spelman College in Atlanta.
Ezra came from Detroit, where his father was a successful OBGYN.
Ezra grew up in a very affluent household. His parents divorced at a relatively early age. He lived primarily with his mom.
There was an instant connection.
These are people who have a lot in common. They have these family backgrounds that go along with each other. They've had similar ambitions. They're both smart.
But as they got to know each other, it was what they didn't have in common that drew them closer.
He's described as very charismatic, very charming, gregarious, outgoing, pretty social. Whereas then Adrienne is described as the inverse, very to herself and a homebody.
She experiences happiness for the first time. She was deeply in love with him.
The couple dated for 2 years. Then, the happiness Adrienne waited so long for disappeared in a matter of weeks.
In junior year, Adrienne gets overwhelmed academically and drops out. And then soon after, Ezra breaks up with her. It was the night of a party that they had planned to have at Adrienne's apartment. And even though Ezra has broken up with Adrienne, he decides to still go ahead with the party, and Adrienne is allowing it.
This is absolutely devastating to her. And, we can all relate to being upset over a breakup, but this is, in some respects, I think, life-altering for her at the time. Adrienne goes into her bedroom and takes an entire bottle of sleeping pills and slits her wrist in an attempt to kill herself over this breakup.
Her sister finds her and engages 911, takes her to the hospital. She's held there for observation.
Adrienne is released the next day.
This does speak to a level of emotional dependence that is concerning. And it's concerning because it suggests that Adrienne feels like she can't live without somebody else. And that's a dangerous place to be.
After the suicide attempt, Ezra comes back and cares for Adrienne.
I do think that he felt on some level responsible for that, and then responsible for her.
Within a month, they were back to being a happy couple. During Ezra's senior year of college in 1984, the couple ends up getting married.
That same year, Ezra graduated magna cum laude with a degree in accounting. He easily secured a job at a top-ranked firm. A few years later, Adrian gave birth to Jessica.
She was a housewife. She was very devoted to Ezra. She moved with him for his work. They lived for a time in Austria.
They moved back to the United States, end up in California. Their son is born. Things are kind of trucking along.
Ezra decided to switch gears, making what he hoped would be a lucrative move from accounting to technology.
I met Ezra through my ex-husband who had a software company, and Ezra was an employee working in business development. He just picked it up very quickly and understood the technology and was able to work with clients to get them what they needed. He was just such a charismatic guy and vivacious and just drew people in, but he was also extremely intelligent. At that point, everyone could see his talent and his ability to work with customers and bring in new business. So that's why he was invited to join the new company as a partner.
This venture was one of the first of its kind to figure out how to put digital media on the internet.
For almost a decade, the company flourished.
In the early 2000s, it was almost like the Wild West of technology. And we reached a point in the company where we had grown significantly. We had some really strong contracts, and we decided that it was time to exit.
In September 2007, Ezra and his partners sold the company for a sizable profit. The windfall marked a new chapter for Ezra.
My ex-husband and Ezra were spending their social time together. They were going out to LA quite a bit. They were entertaining people at a higher level than prior with bottle service and spending more money because they had this newfound money, I believe. And so it was a happy time for them.
By late 2008, Jessica was in college. Adrian devoted her time to raising her son and taking care of Ezra. The entire Davidson family was enjoying Ezra's success.
He was able to put a lot of money down as a down payment on what he thought was his dream house in Pomona.
With a new home and a flush bank account, everything seemed to be going good for the family.
But the early morning hours of New Year's Day 2009 bring uncertainty. At Adrian's request, Jessica wakes her younger brother and ushers the sleepy child into her car.
Jessica is not sure what's happening, but she complies.
Jessica gets in the car with her brother and starts heading to the grandparents' house, and the boyfriend starts driving Adrian to the police station.
Eventually, Adrian arrives at an LA County Sheriff's Department substation.
Adrian walks up to the desk sergeant and, without any emotion, tells him, "I'm here to turn myself in."
Just hours into 2009, 46-year-old Adrian Davidson walks into a police substation in Los Angeles County, requesting to turn herself in. Adrian explains why.
She tells the police that she shot her husband and that he's back at their house in bed. She was speaking in a very matter-of-fact way, very monotone. This was obviously something that, was very shocking.
Certainly not every day that someone walks in and tells the desk sergeant that they just killed someone. So, for one, he's going to be taken aback by the rarity of what just happened, but also the fact that she does it in a steady state is going to be a bit off-putting, to say the least. The desk sergeant isn't going to ask any questions about the crime. They're going to get it in the hands of a detective.
Investigators step out to speak with Adrian.
Adrian explains that the shooting took place about an hour earlier in the upstairs bedroom at her home. She explains that her husband may be alive or dead. She doesn't know because she didn't check, nor did she call 911.
Given the nature of her claim, investigators dispatch patrol officers to the Davidson home, hopeful they will find Adrian's husband, Ezra, alive. Both Adrian and Jessica's boyfriend are told to stay put.
The police, not knowing all of the details, they tell him that they're going to be impounding his car, as well as taking Adrian into custody because of the confession that she's made.
Jessica's boyfriend calls her and says, you got to come get me because they're impounding my car. And Jessica's like, what is going on?
He's not sure what's going on. He explains that the police took her mother back for questioning.
Jessica rushes to the station. Meanwhile, police officers arrive at the Davidson home.
The officers find Ezra Davidson lying motionless under the covers in the master bedroom. He is dead due to a single gunshot wound to the back of his head. Adrian was telling the truth. A 9mm shell casing is found behind the bed, and the 9mm handgun itself is found in a box in the closet. A tag on the side of the box indicates that the gun was sold to Adrian Davidson on December 15th, 2008. The evidence at the crime scene supports Adrian Davidson's story, but nothing explains why.
Back at the station, investigators put that question to Adrian.
She was speaking in a very matter-of-fact way, very monotone. You maybe wouldn't expect someone to have that calm of a demeanor considering what had taken place.
Adrian doesn't offer up details as to what led to the shooting, only that she is responsible.
She shot him, she put the gun up, she cleaned up, she got dressed, she made sure that her son did not go into the room, she closed the door, she called Jessica, and she was driven to the police station so she can confess. That is totally inconsistent with what a murderer does. After a murderer commits a crime, a murderer tries to stage the scene to make it seem like they did nothing wrong. And the last place they'd go is they go to the police department.
She could have concocted any story she wanted to about what had happened. They'd gotten some kind of a struggle, some kind of a fight, the gun accidentally went off. She doesn't do any of that.
Adrian's 21-year-old daughter Jessica arrives. By now, she is in a full-blown panic.
As an investigator, you're going to read the situation and make some tactical decisions as to how you want the interview with Jessica to play out. Do you want to lead with the fact that he's dead and see how she reacts? Do you want to hold that back and see how she plays to see if she admits that she's aware of it or not admit to it? So in this case, it sounds like they decided to just come straight at her and explain the situation. First thing they do is break the news to her that her father is dead.
And at that point, Jessica finds out that her mom has confessed to shooting her dad, which is the last thing that Jessica was expecting. Jessica is just reeling with this.
Despite her shock, investigators hope Jessica can shed light on what transpired between her mother and father.
She does talk to the police, and she tells them about what she knows about their parents' relationship.
Jessica explains that she recently found out that her father is having an affair.
On January 1st, 2009, police in Pomona, California interviewed 21-year-old Jessica Davidson about the shooting death of her father, Ezra. Jessica explains that a few weeks earlier, her mother asked her for help with a computer.
It seems that Ezra has decided to write a book. So Adrian wants to look at the book, and she asked Jessica to help her go onto the laptop.
Jessica helped her mother find the document.
Adrian went and read a manuscript, and there was a character in the book, and the way that character was described sounded like this woman that he worked with.
The name in the book is very similar to his secretary's name, and so she digs a little bit deeper, and that's where she sees details of email exchanges that reveals to her that he has been having an affair with his secretary, who happens to also be a college student who's about 20 years old.
Jessica explained that one email in particular sent her mother into a tailspin.
She finds essentially a written contract between her husband and her husband's mistress, where her husband has agreed to pay her rent, to pay part of her tuition, and to pay her car note in exchange for sexual favors.
This person that he's involved with is 20 years old, basically a year younger than their daughter. And so for her, it's like, you know, the world is crashing down.
Adrian was very surprised, she was very shocked, she was very upset.
For detectives, the revelation offers potential insight into Adrian's actions.
As an investigator, and from a legal standpoint, you don't ever have to prove motive, but finding out what the motive is something that gets the investigators' ears to perk up, and they're going to try and pull on that thread to see how far it goes.
Investigators continue to question Jessica. She admits that she too was upset. Her father had been far less generous when it came to her.
Jessica is like, I'm driving a junk car, and my dad isn't helping me financially. She feels disrespected. She feels unloved that her dad is choosing to put a 20-year-old girl above her as his daughter.
Jessica and Adrian discussed what to do next.
Jessica asked her, you know, what do you want to do about this? I think maybe you should just go get a divorce. And her mom said, you know, I'll just figure it out, I'll handle it.
A few days later, Adrian took her findings to Ezra.
According to Jessica, her mother confronted her father about the affair, and he admitted to it. He explained that he had no intention of ending the affair, and he even went so far as to give Adrian an ultimatum.
He basically tells her she is number two, she being Adrian, and the young lady is number one.
He told her to either accept that he was going to be having affairs or he would divorce her.
Adrian did not want to get a divorce because not only religiously that it was not something that she agreed with, but also her identity and her attachment to her husband was a huge deal. She didn't see herself being by herself and not with her husband.
In the following days, Jessica says her mother called her incessantly.
This is very atypical of their relationship. Her daughter Jessica describes her as somebody who was, in some respects, emotionally distant, not somebody who would talk about her problems, and yet all of a sudden her mom is talking to Jessica every day, calling her multiple times.
After several days of agonizing over the situation, Adrian decides that she doesn't want a divorce and that she's willing to allow Ezra to have his affairs.
Adrian feels like she doesn't have any options. It doesn't necessarily sit right with her, but she tries, right? She's trying to say, okay, you know what, it's fine. I still have my home. I still have my life. I still have my husband. I still have my children. This can be okay.
Jessica says that on New Year's Eve, the whole family gathered at the Davidson home for dinner.
Jessica's there with her boyfriend, and they have a delightful dinner. Everything is going very well. After dinner, Jessica and her boyfriend leave to go to a New Year's Eve party.
Jessica and her boyfriend left around 9 p.m. Several hours later, she received the call from Adrian asking her to return home. Now, Jessica is demanding to know what happened after she left.
Jessica says to the police, I am not leaving this police station until I talk to my mom. And so they allow her to go in and talk to her mom.
There's no downside from the investigator standpoint to letting this conversation take place because they know that it's going to be recorded, and even if you tell someone it's going to be recorded, once they get into the emotional exchange between a mother and a daughter about killing a father, it's a pretty good bet that something's going to slip out.
Did you plan this?
Just hours after the shooting death of businessman Ezra Davidson, his 21-year-old daughter confronts his alleged killer, her mother, Adrian Davidson. Investigators listen in.
What happened?
You know what happened.
What? No, I don't, Mom. I don't want to know, but what I need to know is, like, what set you off?
Up to that point, Adrian had been very calm, very matter-of-fact, but when she spoke to her daughter in the interview room, she really broke down.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I'm not mad at you, Mom.
I love your father. It just broke my heart.
But it's where the conversation goes next that really catches the attention of investigators.
I mean, is this what you meant when you told me you were going to take care of things on the first?
For the investigators, their ears are going to perk up when they get this tidbit where Adrian tells Jessica she's going to take care of everything on the first. And here we are on the first, and the husband's dead. To the police, this sure sounds like what she's saying is she meant to kill her husband on New Year's Day. But Adrian doesn't answer the question directly.
Jessica, kept asking her mother, why did you decide to do this? You should have just left him.
I got scared.
Scared of what?
I was supposed to be with your father. I just love your father so much.
Mom, we would have figured a way. We would have taken care of things.
I couldn't live with my heart being broken every day. It just broke my heart.
I don't know.
Following the conversation, Jessica and her boyfriend are allowed to leave. However, Adrian is placed under arrest.
The investigators are left trying to figure out, do they arrest her for first-degree murder or manslaughter? And whether or not this is a premeditated crime or whether it's a crime of passion. And they've got some information that suggests she's in this emotional state, but other pieces of information that are explaining that she's making very clear and calculated decisions.
Hoping to find out, investigators keep digging. They track down the gun dealer who sold Adrian the gun on December 15th. One day after she had learned that her husband was having an affair.
The gun dealer explains that Adrian told him that she was buying a weapon for self-defense.
She tells him her husband goes on business trips and she needs to feel safe.
But Adrian didn't leave with the gun.
The law in California states that there's a 10-day waiting period after you purchase the gun between when you make the purchase and when you can actually pick it up. And it's to prevent people from committing rash acts like suicide or murder.
She still goes and picks the gun up on December 29th. She comes home and she puts the gun in her closet. Doesn't tell anybody that she has the gun.
Was Adrian really looking to protect herself? Or was she planning her husband's murder? Investigators look at the couple's finances. They learned that in the 2 years since he sold his company, Ezra enjoyed a new lifestyle thanks to the hefty profit.
He goes through a period where he just wants to party and go out and have a good time. And he's celebrating, he's taking other people out to dinner, he's spending money on his employees, and it seems like Adrian is taking more and more of a backseat in their relationship.
Ezra got caught up in the excitement of having all this money, and he and my ex were going out and celebrating and drawing a lot of attention. I think in his mind, he was just enjoying his life and having fun and spending money.
By the end of 2008, Ezra's spending caught up with him.
Investigators determined that the family has fallen behind in their mortgage payments and are in risk of losing their house.
A fact investigators believe could have fueled Adrian's anger over the affair.
Yet, with all these financial difficulties, Ezra is still finding a way to make the payments of his mistress's rent.
He is spending all this money on somebody while their family was suffering. He's going to continue to do this. She's angry.
The question was, did she kill him as a result of provocation, or did she plan to do it?
Almost a month after the murder, investigators believe they have the answer.
On January 29th, 2009, Adrian is charged with first-degree murder. Now, prosecutors must hope that a jury believes that Adrian is a vengeful, premeditated murderer.
In February 2010, Adrian Davidson is on trial for fatally shooting her husband of 24 years, Ezra. She is charged with first-degree murder.
It shocked me when they refused to offer her a manslaughter. It was an unlawful killing, clearly, but it was a manslaughter.
The prosecution make their case.
They point out that Adrian went out and bought a handgun the day after she found out that her husband was cheating on her.
She had to decide, I'm going to buy a gun. She had never had a gun before. She had to research what type of gun she should get. She had to locate a gun dealer. She had to talk to the gun dealer. And she put the gun in her room where she could use it.
Adrian's attorneys present their side.
In Adrian's defense, they didn't contest that she actually committed the killing. But what they were saying is that it took place in the heat of passion, that it wasn't a premeditated murder.
Jessica takes the stand, testifying about an incident that happened when the family lived in Austria.
Jessica remembers her mother getting upset with her father after finding out that he'd been having an affair with a stripper.
And her response is to take all of his clothes, and she cuts holes in all of his business shirts, and she also cuts out his face from a lot of their family photographs.
Ezra retaliated.
The daughter said she remembers her father dragging her mother down a flight of stairs by her hair. The daughter testified to how her father was abusive verbally and how he would beat her mother. Once they moved Back in the United States, the beatings, the humiliations continued. He was constantly having affairs, constantly beating her, constantly humiliating her.
The defense calls who they hope will be their star witness, Adrienne Davidson. Adrienne testifies about her marriage.
She just wanted someone to take care of her, to value her, to validate her. And the truth of it is that Ezra was not always unkind. There were a lot of times where Ezra was glowing and made her feel good. And so for Adrienne, there was a benefit to her being the wife of Ezra and continuing. And that benefit allowed her to compartmentalize or become apathetic to the things that weren't working well.
But in light of Ezra's latest affair, her whole world felt uncertain.
It wasn't just sex with a stripper anymore. He was supporting someone else.
She is concerned that she's losing everything, everything. She's losing her emotional security, her financial security. I mean, everything that she uses to base her identity on.
She tells the jury that on the night Ezra died, she made an impassioned plea to her husband.
She asked Ezra, look, I just want to have you New Year's Eve and New Year's Day without the Mr. Sping involved. That's all I'm asking for right now. I'm going to accept her, but it's the beginning of the year. I just want to start it off with you.
Ezra agreed.
Ezra brought dinner and champagne home with him and spent time with Jessica and her boyfriend, who were headed out later to a party with their friends.
Jessica and her boyfriend left at around 7. And then Adrienne and Ezra had from what all accounts was a nice evening together.
Eventually, their young son goes to bed, and it's just the two of them.
They drank champagne, they slept together, they also watched New Year's festivities on TV. When the time came for the countdown for the new year, Adrienne was excited to share that moment with Ezra.
They watched the ball drop in New York. She was very much in love with him that night and very much enjoying that night. And she asked her husband, could he stay there? Could they have not only New Year's Eve, but New Year's Day also? And he told her no. New Year's Day will be for his girlfriend.
Crestfallen, she went to bed and waited for Ezra to join her. But he never did.
She came back downstairs to see what was happening with Ezra.
She sees that he's on his phone texting his girlfriend. She's assuming that he's texting the girlfriend.
And I think that just became so symbolic for her. It is the start of a new year, and this is how it started.
Adrienne says she returned to the bedroom.
She is just stewing over this, and she just has all this emotion. And he comes up, and she tries to talk to him again. I'm just asking you for a few things. On the holidays, don't talk to your mistress. I mean, just reserve the holidays for our family and make sure that you're financially responsible for our family and for our children. And he just says, no, it's your problem. Deal with it on your own. I'm not making any promises to you.
He turned over, went to sleep. She was devastated. She went in the closet, almost like on remote control, got the gun, was intending on shooting herself in the head.
But before she knew it, things would take a very different turn. Adrienne Davidson is on trial for the first-degree murder of her husband, Ezra. She testifies that on the night of his death, she retrieved the gun from the closet with the intention of taking her own life.
She starts thinking about the logistics of it, the details of it, like where is she going to shoot herself? She decides to kill herself in bed.
She wants him to find her laying next to him, dead.
She held the gun to her head. She put the barrel of the gun in her mouth, all while he's there sleeping soundly.
She's upset and he's sleeping like there's no care in the world, like a baby. And it's too much for her.
Before she knew what she was doing, she turned the gun on her husband and pulled the trigger.
Just instantly, she changed the gun and shot him in the head.
The defense closes, arguing that the only thing Adrian planned was her own death.
She goes there to purchase a handgun with the intention to take her own life. And why do I say I'm very strong and clear on that? Because all of her life, at various parts, she's been suicidal. She actually attempted suicide when Ezra broke it off. What you don't have with her is a history of violence at all.
Will the jury agree?
The case goes to the jury on March 9th, 2010. It only takes the jury 3.5 hours to deliberate. They come back with a guilty verdict. They find 47-year-old Adrian Davidson guilty of first-degree murder.
By law in California, first-degree murder carries a sentence of 25 years to life. The sentencing enhancement of using a gun in the commission of the murder also carries an additional 25 years. So the judge didn't have any ability to give a sentence, less or greater than 50 years to life.
Adrian's incarceration leaves their son to be raised by family members.
She should have divorced him, but she chose something that was horrible and unimaginable, and it just ruined so many lives.
Cases like this showcase that we can never tell.
मामराइया जिसने सुनी जमीन बनार दी थी अलफ अलागा कमत मामराइया जिसने सुनी जमीन बनार दी थी बिजन थमा गए खलो आसमान कर गए तैजीमी पानी गए ऊपर खलार दी थी ते 14 तबक पैदा किया आप रब ने सारी गल ये खोल सुनार दी थी ओ दी चनगी लाट जावे दवावा ते कुदरत अपनी नाल चमकार दी थी ते नैना गंदी ज़बान तारीफ काबल कितनी किस्म मखलूक बनार दी थी नैना गंदी ज़बान तारीफ काबल कितनी किस्म मखलूक बनार दी थी ओ बांदे जन्नत दे दोज़ख को जिक्र कर गए गल मैशर बरयान ठहरार दी थी ते मजहब सचो इस्लाम यान कर गए सुना नबी ना उम्मत थमारे दीती मजहब सचो इस्लाम यान कर गए सुना नबी ना उम्मत थमारे दीती ओ नबी पाक का नाम तू जाऊं सदके नबी पाक का नाम तू जाऊं सदके ते सचा दीन की खबर सोनार दीती तैसम सुनो वजीर हुसैन साहब जाने पुणछ सारी दिगवार दसे इसम सुनो वजीर हुसैन साहब जाने पुणछ सारी दिगवार दसे ओ बचा दो नजीर रशीद सोना सऊदी अरब को वेत मां पार दसे नकर कोट गए विच मकान जिन गो गुजर बोकड़ा कूम शो मार दसे नकर कोट गए विच मकान जिन गो गुजर बोकड़ा कूम शो मार दसे ओ सारी कौम बरादरी लोक जाने मुझ अला अखलाक किरदार दसे ते कर गए नेक लाल कमाई ओ सारी कड्या दिन मेहनत मजदूरियां मां कर गए नेक लाल कमाई सारी कड्या दिन मेहनत मजदूरियां मां ओ सारी उम्र रह गए करूं बार आपे तेरे आ दूर कर तू मजबूरियां मां ते दिता रब ने मकान जायदाद सारी खुशी दिती रब ने गला पूरियां मां ऊंचो कर गए नाम बरादरी गो ऊंचो कर गए नाम बरादरी गो रेया दूर पावे वतनू दूरियां मां दिता रब ने मकान जायदाद सारी खुशी दिती रब ने गला पूरियां मां ऊंचो कर गया नाम बरादरी गो ऊंचो कर गया नाम बरादरी गो रेया खुद पावे वतनू दूरियां मां इनको पाई आजी तल हुसैन नामी ब्याल दरागे विच है खास डेरो इनको पाई आजी तलब हुसैन नामी ब्याल दरागे विच है खास डेरो जोड़ी रब ने पयांगी जोड़ दी थी जोड़ी रब ने पयांगी जोड़ दी थी रबा शुक्र है लख हजार तेरो